Well, good afternoon, everybody. I think we're a minute to 2 o'clock. So if I could welcome everybody back to the second part 2 of the Northern Area Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Sherry Jesperson, for anyone who's just tuned in, and I'm chair of this committee. My first task today, having welcomed you all back, is to take another roll call of the elected members here present on the committee. So as I call your name, colleagues, if you could say whether you're present. This time I'll be using the right list. So Councillor Andrews.
Present.
Councillor Cook.
Present.
Councillor Fry.
Present.
Councillor Hall.
Present.
Councillor Heatley.
Present.
Councillor Carol Jones.
Present.
Councillor Stella Jones.
Present.
Councillor Emma Parker.
Present.
Councillor Mary Penfold.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Val Pothecary.
Present.
And Councillor Belinda Rideout.
Present.
Lovely, thank you very much. Good. So our next agenda item then is agenda items 4E, and which is land at Littledown in Shaftesbury for 34 dwellings, layout and landscaping. Now, members, you'll know that this site is familiar, and we're asked to consider today an alternative layout to that which we approved in February 2020, I think. And now it has 2 extra dwellings and a change from single-storey to 2-storey homes. So that's, if it sounds familiar to you, it's because we've seen it not so very long ago. And I think, just to remind you members, there was an update sheet that came with this application before the committee. So Verity Murphy, Senior Planning Officer, this is your application. Would you like to take us through your report? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. So this application is for 34 dwellings with garages, parking, landscaping and amenity space. As you've already stated, there has already been 32 dwellings approved on the site. Here we have the constraints map. So the application site is here. The red shows that it is within the AONB, and the brown and orange are 2 bands of ancient woodland which wrap around the site. The site is located here. To the north is the northern section of the overall development site, where the houses are currently under construction. To the east are industrial units, and to the south is residential dwellings. And here are the bands of ancient woodland to the west. The blue line shows the extent of the outline consent, which approved 170 dwellings on the site. The northern section is under construction at the moment, so this application only relates to the southern part of the site, which is shown in red. So there has been 32 single-storey dwellings approved on the site previously under a reserved matters application, and they are laid out in a very similar layout to what's proposed now. This is the proposed site plan, so it's for 34 dwellings. The main differences between this application and the reserved matters application is the additional 2 units proposed, and also the fact that the dwellings are changing from single-storey to 2-storey dwellings. It's important to note at this stage that there is no policy requirement to have bungalows on this part of the application site. Here we have the tenure plan. So 32 out of the 34 dwellings will be provided as market housing. The additional 2 dwellings will be in the form of shared ownership affordable units, and they're located in the northeastern section of the site. A lot of concern has been expressed in regards to the impact of the development on the existing properties to the south in home fields. So this plan shows the separation distances between those. So in all cases, there's a minimum distance of 17 metres, but in the majority of cases, that distance is a lot greater. And you can also see that the dwellings are not back to back, they're angled away from each other, which helps to reduce the impact of the new development on these properties. So this is the building height plan. As you can see, all of the units proposed are 2-storey, with the addition of some single-storey garages. There are a number of different materials proposed because there are a number of different plot types, as you can see from this plan. The main materials will be brick, render and tile hanging, and roof tiles will be slate grey or burnt orange roof tiles. Here we have typical elevations of the plots. And some additional typical elevations. These are the affordable units. This top street scene is the houses which face onto the public open space to the west, shown here. And this street scene is the internal street scene, which faces into the development site facing northwards. So this is a photo of the northern part of the overall development site. And as you can see, the houses proposed are very similar to what's already been constructed. This is the parking strategy. So each of the houses has 2 allocated hard-standing parking spaces, but then they also have some internal garages shown in green, and red detached garages shown in red. The yellow are the visitor spaces. So this is the boundary and surfaces plan. So the primary route through the site will be tarmac, and the secondary routes will be block paving. And here we have some examples of the proposed boundary materials. So it's a mix of close board fence, brick wall, stone walls, estate railings, timber post and rail fencing, and low level hedging. This is the proposed landscaping plan for the site. So to the north is the area of public open space, and the ancient woodland is retained to the west. There is significant additional on-street planting proposed under this application compared to the reserve matters application. In the middle of the site, there is a central landscape courtyard, which links the houses to the public open space to the north of the site. The hedging along the southern boundary will be retained and reinforced with new planting to offer additional screening to the properties to the south of the site. This photograph is looking south towards the application site. You can just see the tops of some of the houses within Homefields, which are the nearest neighbouring properties to the south. These are the houses within Homefield along the southern boundary of the application site. You'll note that they're not bungalows, they're 1.5-storey dwellings. Concern has been expressed in relation to the impact of the development on key viewpoints in Shaftesbury. So these photos are taken from Castle Hill, looking back towards the application site. So you can just see the tops of the houses in Homefield. So there will be glimpses of the proposed dwellings. However, you'll see them in the context of existing dwellings anyway, so it's not considered that it would result in any significant harm from this viewpoint. As you can see, in the summer, the impact will be even less when the trees are in leaf. Okay, so here are the key planning matters. So in terms of the principle of development, it is an allocated housing site and residential development has been approved on the site before. The proposal will provide 2 additional affordable housing units. The housing mix is consistent with what has already been approved on the site and with the surrounding residential properties. The layout, scale and design of the development is considered to accord with the northern part of the development site and also with the surrounding residential properties. There's not considered to be significant impacts on residential amenity. There's not considered to be an impact on landscape over and beyond that associated with the reserved matters application for 32 dwellings. And there's not considered to be any significant highways impact. A new Section 106 agreement will be undertaken on the site, and that will secure 2 affordable housing units and an off-site financial contribution equating to 0.1 of a dwelling. There'll also be a financial uplift in the contributions towards education, off-site highways contributions for public rights of way, community hall and leisure facilities, and for health. So the recommendation is to grant, subject to a Section 106 agreement and conditions. The principle of residential development on the site has been established under the previous applications. The application site is identified for housing growth under Policy 18 of North Dorset Local Plan and would contribute towards the 5-year housing supply for the area. It would also provide 2 additional on-site affordable housing units. The proposal is sensitive to its setting within the AONB and to the character and appearance of the surrounding development. The proposed dwellings are not considered to result in a significant landscape impact over and beyond that associated with the previous applications. The landscape strategy follows the principles of the original master plan for the site and will result in additional tree planting and links with the open space to the north of the site. The proposed dwellings have been orientated and designed to limit adverse impacts on the character of the area and on neighbouring residential properties. Parking is provided for each unit in accordance with the relevant standards. Thank you, Chair. That's the end of my presentation.
Good. Thank you very much indeed. That's very clear. I know that Steve Savage, the Transport Manager, is not able to be with us today. I'm not sure if Guy Tetley is there and wants to add anything from the Highways point of view to that report. Do we have Guy with us? I'm not, I don't think no, all right. If there are any highways questions, members do ask them and we will get them answered by hook or by crook because I know that Steve was going to speak next. No, Guy, no, all right. We have some presentation then, the presentation from Hannah Knowles on behalf of the applicant, which Jill Whitney is now going to read for us. Jill, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so this is from Hannah Knowles, written statement on behalf of Redrow Homes. We welcome the recommendation of approval of this application from your officers, which is a testament to 18 months of engagement with the council, resulting in high quality scheme that is before you today. The site forms part of the wider Little Down development, which is currently under construction, where the principle of residential development has already been established in the local plan and accepted through the grant of various planning permissions. This proposal will deliver a net increase of 2 dwellings compared to the existing consented scheme, providing 34 family homes, including 2 shared ownership homes. The continued delivery of the Little Down development will positively contribute towards Dorset Council's 5-year supply position. This application is before you due to an objection from Shaftesbury Town Council. Regretfully, whilst the applicant has proactively endeavoured to engage with the Town Council on numerous occasions, disappointingly, no response has been received from them for some time. Officers have, however, been copied into all correspondence and will have noted our attempts to engage with them. A robust landscape assessment, including montages of key viewpoints, was submitted. The assessment considered the impact of the proposed development in comparison with the baseline of the approved scheme of 32 dwellings in line with industry standards. The site is heavily influenced by the existing and emerging settlement. The site is heavily influenced by the existing and emerging settlement edge of Shaftesbury, with key landscape features limited to the periphery. The ex-ante planning permission and adjacent construction activity has changed the character of the site. Consequently, whilst it is within the Cranbourne Chase AONB, the site has a low to medium landscape value. The layout, scale and landscape strategy retains the principles of the approved scheme, with additional tree and hedgerow planting and enhancements to the approved woodland blocks. The proposals soften the edge to the public parkland and increase connectivity, providing a green Dorset corridor. The proposals will not alter the contextual landscape character, as the change from a field laid to grass to built form has already been improved. In the short term, there may be a minor impact on the site character, but this will result in a minor beneficial effect on the landscape over time with the introduction of the proposed planting. Any impacts of views are limited to local effects of the skyline, with a neutral effect on the wider landscape. Given the principle of built form already established on the site, the proposal should be considered in light of the landscape enhancements proposed, the surrounding built form and the delivery of much needed family housing. We respectfully ask that councillors approve this planning application in line with your officer's recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Jill. So I know Councillor Cook wants to make a comment, but if you'll hold your fire just a second, Councillor Cook, I'll see if there are any questions. Councillor Hall, is yours a question?
It is a question, and I'm sorry, it's a highways related question.
All right, we'll see what we can do.
Do we know whether the roads are likely to come up for adoption? I just asked that question because it was stated that the secondary roads would be block paving, and I would be surprised that Dorset Council would want to take on block paving.
A good question. Who's got the answer to that?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor, for that question. It's a good question. The block paved areas are the private courtyard areas, and they wouldn't normally be offered for adoption. My understanding is that the estate road has been designed to be offered for adoption, because highways did ask for some minor tweaks to the layout in the course of the application. So you can see the plan on the screen. The blocked paved areas are shown in a slightly different colour to the main track of the highway. And it's designed with a turn-in head at the end, so refuge bins would be able to navigate the main route, but as you rightly point out, not the blocked paved areas, because they wouldn't be able to turn round.
So that bodes a question which I'm sure isn't actually a planning related question, but does that mean that the homeowners will be responsible for that block paving individually, or is this going to be one of those sites that have a management fee attached?
I don't have that information to hand, but it's often the case that when you have private areas like that, there are management companies that will deal with it, or there's an obligation in deeds that there's a joint responsibility for the upkeep of those areas. But it's not something we need to be too concerned about, I don't think, on this scheme.
Okay, thank you.
So not a planning matter, not for us today, but a very good question nonetheless. Thank you very much. Have I got any other questions before I go on to discussion? No other questions. Good. Okay, Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Chairman. I have issues with this change to the development. I'm fully aware that planning permission had been granted for bungalows on this site, and that we can do nothing about. The change to 2-storey dwellings is the thing that concerns me. And specifically the comments that the developer made in their statement, because if you look at the Cranbourne Chase AONB's comments in our report pack, Their first bullet point states that two-storey dwellings will change the character of the relationship with the public parkland and will provide higher and harder edges, resulting in a more enclosed character. And Shaftesbury Town Council themselves have also made reference to this, along with some other objections, specifically around policy SFDH3 of the Shaftesbury Neighbourhood Plan. If I can just read that, respect the scale of adjoining development. Now, the planning officer quite rightly pointed out that some of the houses in Homefield, which lie just to the south of the site, are 1.5 dwelling houses, 1.5 story houses. However, there are the last 3 properties in Homefield which get closest to the site are bungalows, as are the dwellings on the edge of the next bar of Homefield as well. So there is a conflict there between the heights of the buildings in the proposed development and the closest dwellings in Homefield, which I feel is changing what we had already agreed. Also, in the Shaftesbury Town Council's objections, they say there is a huge demand for bungalows. And again, mirrored in Cranbourne Chase's comments, is that there is no evidence submitted to demonstrate the need for 2-storey dwellings. And therefore, with the overwhelming comments from those 2 consultees that have come back with their comments and points, I would like actually to propose a refusal of the application as it is in front of us, on the grounds that it is changing the landscape look from what had been proposed to a new set of circumstances. And I think this, given that this development is slap in the middle of an AONB, I think my personal view is that considerable weight should be given to the comments that the AONB themselves have made.
Okay, thank you.
And so I'll leave it at that for the moment.
For the moment, thank you, because I'm going to ask now planning officer. So Councillor Cook has made a couple of points here that I'd like you just to comment on before we go further, because first of all, he's not happy with the change from bungalows to 2 stories, given that some of the buildings in the area are bungalows. So could we have your views on the increased harm that having 2-storey bungalows might do in that area, and then the landscape issue, which is we've had a proposal to object on grounds of landscape. So I'd like to hear your comments on that. So Verity.
Thank you, Chair. If I pick up on Councillor Cook's first point in relation to the impact of the new dwellings on the public parkland to the north, because I think that was a concern of the AONB officer. I have taken on board the comments of that officer. However, when you're using that public parkland, you would already see the 2-storey dwellings which have been constructed in the northern part of the site, and you would see built form if the reserve matters application came forward. So I don't think the increase from single-storey to 2-storey would necessarily change your experience of that public parkland, because you'd already see buildings using that anyway. So I don't necessarily think that's a strong enough reason for refusal. In terms of the impact of the 2-storey dwellings on the surrounding residential properties, yes, in Homefields there are chalet bungalows and there are also single-storey bungalows. However, I think there's a good enough distance between the proposed dwellings and the existing ones in Homefield to reduce any significant overbearing impact on those properties and reduce the visual impact of them.
Right. So there's that's the officer view.
No, I hear what Verity said. Yeah.
Yeah.
I take.
You know,
take the
I
point.
mean,
Yeah.
I'm just testing here to make sure.
Mhm.
Yes. Have I got anybody else that would like to comment on this? You're all being very quiet. Is that because you had too good a lunch, too much soporific lettuce, and now you're asleep? Councillor Cook, in the light of what Verity's just said, do you want to pursue your proposal to refuse? You can.
I'm torn here. I am torn here because
I know it has to be good.
This has come to us before.
Yes.
And quite rightly, we considered what was in front of us at the time, and we gave it our approval.
Yes.
I'm not sure that the developer has got the grounds other than what I may think they want to get from this, but I see that a proposal was given approval for bungalows, which we were all satisfied with.
We were all satisfied with,
and
yes.
I'm not satisfied that now they come back and try and change what they had already.
All right, I'll hold it there because I don't want to put you on the spot. I've got two more speakers that have come forward now, which might or might not help. Can I ask Councillor Val Pothecary, what would you like to say?
Minded to support Councillor Cook's opinion here.
Right.
Looking from Gillingham, which is the long view, there's the escarpment, and there's danger, I feel, with two-storey homes that they could be seen, which would be a real shame. You know, it's quite an iconic view from when you're coming up the hill from Gillingham, and it's green. Anyway, that's aside. I think comments by the AONB should be taken into consideration. I think if we've given approval for bungalows, then at least half of them should be retained as bungalows, or as the houses are similar round, you know, one and a half story. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I don't, and apart from all that, I think they look really ugly. So that's three reasonable reasons for my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to ask Councillor Rideout.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Well, I'm not happy with this coming back either, but my dilemma is I can't see any significant reasons to refuse it, because as the case officer has pointed out, there's already construction of two-storey to the north, and you've got 1.5 in existing to the south. Apart from which, the whole idea, I think, with the bungalows was to protect the landscape character and neighbouring amenity. But with the two-storey, I'm not that sure that you're actually going to notice them once built, with views into the escarpment, because of the wooded areas. It's going to conceal them. So quite honestly, I don't think we got any grounds to refuse it. Okay.
Right, that's a very, very fair comment, and it's certainly the officer's view is that the as I've understood Verity to say, that the difference in terms of landscape impact between single story and two-story is not very great. Have I got that right, Verity? I'm coming to you, Mary. Yeah.
Yes, Chair, that's correct. That's my professional opinion on the application.
Yes, and that's important. Councillor Penfold.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a question about the road surface, actually. When we come in off the main road, I presume that is tarmac, and then we go on to, would that be sort of sandstone or gravel or something, the rest?
Verity.
Yes, thank you. We have put a condition on, so we will have all the hard surfacing details prior to commencement of the development, so we can look at those and agree them at a later point.
Thank you. Could I ask another question, please, Chairman?
Yes, you may.
Who is going to be responsible for the upkeep of the trees? Because they look very nice, but obviously trees have to be maintained.
Thank you for your question. I'm not sure at this stage who would be responsible for the maintenance of those trees, so I can't answer that question, I'm afraid.
I just look at they're obviously individual trees, and they would probably be specimen trees, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I do know exactly what you mean. They're going to be on street trees, and they're going to be. Hannah, can you help with this?
Yeah, on the outline there was quite detailed conditions on landscaping, even though it was in outline, because the structural landscaping is really fundamental on this scheme to ensure what council has already raised about the wider impacts of the scheme. So there's significant new planting being established around the site, and also some tree like planting. That there is obligations and conditions that ensure that has to be carried out. We don't have in front of us whether that would be management company or offered to the town council at this point in time, but there are provisions in the 106 and the planning conditions to ensure that it is maintained, whoever is responsible for doing it. It's a very good question, because the landscape and establishing is key to it fitting in with the locality. Absolutely.
Yes, and thank you, Hannah. And that was in the outline application, did I understand you say? So it would still apply to this one. It wasn't.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that was. Sorry, that's confusing. Sorry, Chair. This is a full planning application. So the strategies for the wider site were established in the outline to make the application acceptable. So there was a lot of planting that's actually outside of this red line, which will also help to make it fit in. This application itself will be tied and bound in the same way as the original one. So we still have that control over the planting being established within this red line area, because this application will sort of supersede the plan if this goes ahead, compared to the other reserve matters application that was granted. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Chair.
Good. So thank you very much. That's very helpful. So we're, I think, members, we can be satisfied that having discussed landscaping last time, that carries forward if we were to say yes to this. So that's helpful to know. Councillor Cook, you had a question.
Yeah, just I think this is probably either for Verity or for Hannah. What do you see as the relative difference in the impact of the MPPF and our land supply between 34 bungalows or 32 bungalows and 34 houses? Would that be significant, or would that be negligible in our getting ourselves forward towards our land supply figure?
You mean our housing 5-year
housing land supply figure? Yeah.
Well, it's 2 extra dwellings.
Yes.
No, Hannah or Verity. I mean, it's a wider question than just the 5-year house. I think
it's a really, really good question, Councillor. Thank you, because I think it is important that we make the point that this is a site that is delivering at the moment towards our 5-year housing land supply. It's mid development. If we are going to look at issues on this current application, we have to be sure they're significant and defendable, because it will delay potentially the delivery of this site, and that will have a knock-on effect on our 5-year housing land supply. So although it's only 2 extra dwellings on this scheme, it could frustrate the delivery of the wider site. So that is a key consideration. We do need all the sites that we can to be delivering to meet and to improve our housing land supply situation, so we get to the point where we have 5 years plus. So it's a very pertinent and good question to ask, because I think that is the impact. It's not so much is it bungalows or is it dwellings? It's the fact that we are delivering on this site towards our supply, and we want to keep that going unless there's good reason not to. One point on the outline, it wasn't bungalows that we secured on the parameters plan on the outline. It was up to 1.5 storey dwellings. So although this goes beyond the outline parameter plan, we did allow up to 1.5, so they could have put that in on the reserve matters, but they didn't. just make that point as well. But thank you, councillor. It's a good point.
Yes, that's a really good point that allowed Hannah to make us aware of that. The fact that in this balance is the fact that we have to be really confident that we're doing the right thing if we were to refuse this, because that could very well destabilise the build out of the whole site, which is underway, and that, you know, that's quite important to us, because of course a lot of the things we give planning permission never do get built out. Councillor Carol Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I understand entirely where Councillor Cook is coming from, but if they were going to 1.5 stories and we've gone to 2 now, I just can't see this can be defended at appeal. And I would also just add that if the feeling was strong enough from Shaftesbury Town Council, they would have been more involved in the process with the developers, and our officer said that they hadn't been in touch, or the applicant said they hadn't been in touch for some time. So my feeling on that is that they can't be terribly worried about it. So I don't think we can defend this at appeal, to be honest, and I think we're going to have to go with it.
That's okay, fair enough. Yes, just to be clear, the town council aren't here, so I wouldn't want to imply any criticism of the town council, and I know that's not what you were.
No. I just went on what the applicant had said.
Yes, exactly. Councillor John Andrews. Sorry, Councillor John Andrews.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm looking out the window now at a 1.5 story, and they're as tall as any 2 story. It really isn't defendable, so I'm totally agreeing with what Carol has just said. Okay.
That's very helpful. I'm going to come back then to you, Tim. You wanted to propose refusal of this. You've now heard a bit more debate. Are you still wishing to do that, or are you? You are entitled to do that. But
I have the feeling that the committee might not support a refusal, but on the other hand, I wasn't sure until I got a seconder whether if I had not got a seconder for this, obviously I would have withdrawn the proposal rather than have it not be seconded. But I do feel, I really do feel that the AONB and the comments that they have made, because this is in an AONB, I mean, it's almost an exceptional development to be allowed to go forward within an AONB. I think their comments should be taken and given some quite heavy weight. So I feel.
So on landscape,
on my own balance, I think I would like to propose. Okay.
So and this is you're proposing refusal on landscape grounds.
On landscape grounds, and also the neighbourhood plan policy SFDH3, in that scale, positioning and orientation of buildings will respect the scale of adjoining development. And I take Homefield as the adjoining development at the moment, because the north of the site, which has been referenced by the applicant, is part of the current development, in my mind. Maybe.
Right. So you're saying it contravenes that policy. I have to press you a bit further, because just contravening a policy, you have to now spell out why you think that matters. In other words, what is the harm that contravening that policy does?
I think it's no.
Is it neighbour amenity?
The change, the 2-story dwellings will change the character of the relationship with the public parkland, and will provide higher and harder edges, resulting in a more enclosed character. So the visual aspect, as referenced by the AONB comments.
Right. Okay. That's fine. Hannah or Verity, can you come? Have you heard now sufficient grounds in sufficient language that I can put this to the vote? I don't want to.
Thank you, Chair. That refusal reason related to the landscape point. Can I confirm, please, Councillor Cook? Because there's not you're not identifying wider landscape impacts? It's the relationship between having 2-storey dwellings and the people using the parkland, because we don't have any
the visual impact, as my seconder has made the point, the visual impact from further away from Shaftesbury, from coming up the hill from the Blackmore Vale.
But there isn't any evidence that we can really cite that shows there will be harm there from the visual and the evidence that we have. So are we satisfied that we want to run
just
with
the internal then, the internal and the parkland?
Okay.
Councillor Apothecary, you came in with the second part that Hannah's now a bit questioning a bit.
Yes, I did. It's difficult. We don't have any photographs or graphics to really show in the long view. But I agree with Councillor Cook that, you know, the AONB are important.
Yes.
I feel.
Yes, okay.
And they, to be honest with you, down in Gillingham, we don't have anything to do with AONBs. But I think the fact that agreement was made initially to allow these 1.5-storey buildings was a really good result, actually. And I think it's very unfortunate that they're going for higher, which will naturally affect the balance of how it sits within its setting,
within the landscape.
The AONB. Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Good. Okay. Don't let me go to vote, Hannah, on something that is not properly formulated, but I think we're nearly there, aren't we? Hannah.
Oh, sorry, Chair. Yes. No, I understand the concern about the wider landscape and the impact on the parkland that the AONB raised.
Right.
I think that just one further point on the impact on the parkland setting. You can see that there's few dwellings located along the edge of the parkland setting. So whilst they're 2-storey, you've got long areas where there'd be no development, no built form along that edge. So it's not as if you've got a situation where there's a line of dwellings. It has been designed with the parkland in mind, and it's responded positively to the parkland and the experience of the people in the parkland through having only 1, 2, 3 really or 4 dwellings along that elevation with gardens that provide big gaps between. So I think just bear that in mind in terms of, you know, when you're thinking about the harm to them being 2-storey for people using that parkland area, which is a great area of open space. It's not a small area because it actually extends further to, you know, further off of that plan where you can't see. So it's going to be a significant and very, you know, good open space for the public to use. And we just need to sort of quantify, you know, having those dwellings 2-storey, is that really going to diminish their experience when they're using it, I think, because it has been designed with that in mind. But yeah, no, thank you, Chair. I understand the 2 points in terms of landscape impact and wider landscape impact. In terms of the amenity point, I don't think we quite explained the reason why there is harm, because we talked about the relationship being quite good in terms of distance between these dwellings. The dwellings that are single storey are set an oblique angle to the development site. So Verity's already pointed out that there doesn't appear to be any sort of overbearing or overlooking of those bungalows. So I don't know if it's quite enough just to say the amenity will be impacting without sort of saying what that amenity impact is on that second refusal.
I don't think we've cited neighbour amenity as the grant, have we, Councillor Cook? Because I don't think we've got any. No, I don't think. I think
thank you.
Yes, it's really the landscape
and the views.
Okay, thank
you.
From
internal out.
And the relationship, the hard edging and so on. Okay. I think I'm now going to put this to the vote. We've had a proposer and a seconder to refuse this application on the grounds of landscape and the impact on the AONB, but we've also had a it's only right to say we've also had a fairly steer clear from officers on that. So I'm now, when you're ready, ladies and gentlemen, we will put this refusal to the vote. So we're voting for a refusal. So if you say for, it means you're for the refusal. And if you say against, it means you're for the proposal. So Councillor Andrews.
Against.
Councillor Cook.
For.
Councillor Fry.
Against.
Councillor Hall.
Against.
Councillor Brian Heatley.
Against.
Councillor Carol Jones.
Against.
Councillor Stella Jones.
Against.
Councillor Emma Parker.
Against.
Councillor Mary Penfold.
Against.
Councillor Val Pothecary.
For.
Councillor Belinda Rideout.
Against.
And right, thank you. So that proposal then, that recommendation falls, which means we are back now to take another vote on the substantive motion, which is to support the officer recommendation. Nobody has anything further to say before, or are you happy we move straight on now to vote for the proposal that is now back on the table, that we approve this application as per the recommendation? Could I have I have Belinda Rideout.
Happy to propose. I think I've lost.
No, she's frozen.
Seems we've lost the chairman.
The chairman has frozen.
No, she's back.
No, the chairman is unfrozen. I'm sorry, just for a moment. Yeah, not for very many minutes. Councillor Rideout, you proposed, and Councillor Andrews has seconded. Did you both say that out loud while I was frozen?
Yeah, I didn't. So I will second.
Could you do that, please? Right, good. Just to be absolutely clear, because I don't think I was out of the room sufficiently long to have missed anything crucial. It was a matter of seconds. Good, thank you very much. I'm now then we have a proposal and a second to accept this application as recommended by the officer, and I shall put that to the vote when you're ready. Councillor Andrews.
For.
Councillor Cook.
Against.
Councillor Fry.
For.
Councillor Hall.
For.
Councillor Heatley.
For.
Councillor Carol Jones.
For.
Councillor Stella Jones.
For.
Councillor Emma Parker.
For.
Councillor Mary Penfold.
For.
Councillor Val Pothecary.
Abstain.
And Councillor Belinda Rideout.
For.
Okay, so that application now is agreed for Littledown in Shaftesbury. Thank you very much indeed. Moving on then to our next application.
Chair, sorry.
Chair. Yes, the minded to. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm getting ahead of myself. That was our minded to recommendation. I will now go to Anna Lee to give us her decision. Anna, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and I confirm I heard the presentation and the debate, and this application will be approved in line with the minded to recommendation. That's subject to Section 106 agreement and conditions. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, and thank you all of you for jumping in to prompt me there. Yes. So we now can move on to item 4G, land at Kentisworth Road in Marnell, to develop the land by the erection of 4 dwellings, garages and footbaths. And ladies and gentlemen, this is an outline application to consider access. First of all, can I ask Emily Jones to give us your report? Emily, are you with us to be giving us your report? Hannah, is Emily?
Apologies, Chair.
Is that
I'm
good?
here.
Lovely.
Just bringing it up.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. And just while you're doing that, Emily, yes, thank you for just acknowledging that Councillor Andrews now has to leave the meeting because he has urgent business elsewhere. Thank you very much, Councillor Andrews.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. This planning application is at land at Kentisworth Road in Marnell for the outline planning permission for the erection of 4 detached dwellings with only access for determination. So this outlined in red is the site. As you can see, this is the settlement boundary of Marnell below. Outlined here, hatched in green, is the extent of a previous planning permission that has been granted for a number of dwellings on that site, which is currently under construction. It is proposed that the access would be off Kentisworth Road here, with the 4 dwellings going on this part of the site, like a former paddock. So again, this is an aerial view of the site. The site's marked by the red dot here. So you've got the access would be coming in here. There is a footpath. I don't know if you can see this line running here. This is a footpath that is in control of the eastern part of the wider site. It's in control of that applicant, not the current applicant. So there is a footpath that runs to the east of this site. As you can see, it's bounded by trees along its boundary with the wider landscape. It's worth noting that this forms sort of a isolated parcel of land within the wider landscape. If you were to go down the footpath to the north of the site, you'd find when you got to this sort of top corner, the land falls away, and you then get the wider views across the Dorset landscape, whereas this is quite self-contained with that strong tree-lined boundary. So this is the site plan for the development that's already been approved and is currently being constructed. But this gives you an idea. So the access road's already sort of granted for this development on this parcel of land. And the access for this site would come off that sort of shared access road. So there's that dotted line shows the footpath, which is outside of this application site. So this is only an indicative layout plan of what is being proposed on the site. Layout would be for subsequent consideration, but it gives an idea that 4 dwellings could fit comfortably on this site, and subject obviously to final layout, final design, appearance, wouldn't have a significant impact on amenity either with each other or the neighbouring properties around. See, this may not be the final layout, but it does show that they can fit comfortably. And with the access, again, that would be the access road shared with the development to the east, coming through at the end of that cul-de-sac of Kentisworth Road. So moving on to some photos of the site. This is the end of the cul-de-sac of Kentisworth Road. You see the access road kind of coming through here, and the developments to the east currently under construction here. So this is the footpath, this gravel track here. You can see you've got the sort of the tree-lined boundary, wider views of the site being somewhat restricted by those trees and the hedging along that boundary. And again, this is looking sort of south back towards Marnell. You've got the development to your left here to the east of the site. And kind of in some ways, this forms a sort of separate parcel of land, sort of isolated. It's not considered that you'd get significant views of the site in the wider landscape. And where you would get the glimpses, it would be seen in the context of the housing, both the existing housing in Marnell and that currently being constructed to the east. There is a lack of 5-year housing land supply. It is an edge of settlement development in a kind of context where the site's quite self-contained with that within the context of existing built development, and it's considered that the landscape and visual amenity wouldn't be harmed sufficiently to outweigh the fact that there is a need for housing in the wider area. And it's considered that on that balance, the application would be acceptable. And that is the end of my presentation, Chair.
Thank you very much. We have no highways matters on this one, have we? There were no, so I have no presentation from highways on this one. That's helpful. Now we have two submissions to hear. The first is from the ward member, Councillor Graham Card-Jones, who would have preferred to have been able to be at the committee to speak to us, but it clashed with other meetings. So we're going to hear his submission read by Jill Whitney. Jill, over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman and members. My apologies for not being here in person. Other commitments have prevented me from attending. The formal objections made by the Parish Council of Marnell are as follows. The development is outside the settlement boundary. The increase in the volume of traffic and the impact on the neighbouring properties. Light pollution. The housing does not meet the needs of the local community. Concerns for access for emergency vehicles on an already congested lane. There are non-material concerns that this is piggybacking on the existing approved application, and thereby both developments would be avoiding S106 payments, even though effectively the combined site would be over the threshold. I think, if I remember correctly, that the development of 9 houses, 2/2018/1436/out, or a previous one, which was then withdrawn originally, included the land that this new application covers and was seeking approval for 13 dwellings. It remains to be seen if a further application comes forward. Being slightly sceptical, perhaps members can see some collusion going on here, despite these applications having different applicants and agents. I see this as a development by stealth, adding nothing to meet the needs of the parish and unwelcome. There have been 11 local responses of objection, representing upwards of 30+ residents. This expansion is very unpopular, and despite the lack of a 5-year land supply, which is the basis for the recommendation to approve, as ward member, I urge a refusal on the grounds set out by the Parish Council.
Thank you very much. We are now going to hear from Claire Spiller for the applicant. Jill.
Okay. On behalf of our client, Mr. John Shipman, thank you for the opportunity to address the committee. Marnell is one of the larger villages where future growth is directed. This proposal would provide much needed additional dwellings and contribute towards readdressing the 5-year housing land deficit in North Dorset. In determining the built-out scheme on the neighbouring site, officers acknowledge that this is an inherently sustainable location. The site has no designations, and the case officer report concludes that there would be no visual or landscape harm when viewed from the surrounding countryside. The proposal would sit next to an existing residential development and would appear integral to the village. Your officers conclude that the area isn't sensitive in terms of light pollution, and the proposal would be viewed against a backdrop of adjacent homes where there is a degree of illumination. The illustrative site plan provides assurance that a detailed scheme would preserve the character and amenities of the area. Your officer also conclude that additional traffic movement would be acceptable. Your highways officer considers that utilising the recently approved access to serve this development is acceptable both in highway safety and capacity terms, and thus supports this proposal. The facilities of Marnell would be accessible to future occupiers of the development and would support the vitality of Marnell through increased footfall and patronage. Your case officer rightly applies the tilted balance as required by paragraph 11D of the NPPF, as the council are unable to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. Thus, the planning balance and the economic, environmental and social benefits of this scheme weigh heavily in favour of this proposed development. For these reasons, I commend the case officer's recommendation to you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. So members, do you have any questions, matters for clarification you would like to ask? Just while we're doing that, just to clarify, the little barn that's shown in the little orange block, that's already gone, hasn't it, Emily?
Yes, Chair, you're correct. That has been removed.
Right. Okay. No questions at all. Not a one.
Yes, please, Chairman. I'd like to ask a question.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you very much. 2 questions really. When I look at the road and the comments, particularly from the local member, it's noted that there's vehicles on a busy lane, and my concern was the footpath that was shown on the first part of the presentation goes over a bend in the road. I just wondered how safe you considered that to be. As you were going round, there was a footpath that crossed over. You showed it to us earlier.
You did indeed. Yes. Could you? There was a good picture. It shows the footpath as it is now.
There it is. There.
Yes.
Yeah. So the footpath is going to the right of the development, so it's outside of this development itself.
So
I was just really thinking that obviously this is a busy estate and there will probably be children here.
So good question. So the footpath, that's an old picture, but the footpath, there was a photograph you showed of the footpath going alongside is that nearly it? That might have been it.
Yes.
Is that the road or the footway?
That's the
one. That's the footpath. Okay, so Mary, that's the footpath as it is now, and it's right adjacent to the site that's already being built out.
Yes. Yes.
So could you say a little bit then, Emily, about what that footpath will end up looking like? It will be a hard stand of a footpath on the edge of a small development, effectively.
Essentially, yes. It will go through. It will be sandwiched by 2 sets of developments.
Right.
It's not. It's the control of the footpath. The responsibility lies with a landowner on the east side of the site. So not this current landowner. The landowner, the applicant, has no control over that footpath. It lies outside of their ownership.
So effectively it will be like a pavement, as it were, that goes between 2 sets of developments rather than what we see now is a grassy footpath.
It could stay like it is.
All right.
Yes, it could stay like it is. Any kind of changes to the footpath obviously would need to go through separate proceedings outside of planning, but it could stay like it is between the 2, not change the surfacing at all, and stay like it is, and people would experience it in the same way.
Right.
Did you know?
Does that address your concerns, Mary?
Yes, I was just concerned about young people if they were playing and obviously using that, but yes, that's much.
There's no vehicle road running alongside the footpath. Okay, right. Thank you.
Could I ask another question, Chairman?
Yes, please do. Yes.
How confident are we that the drainage can be accommodated sufficiently? I'm very conscious that it's bouldering the fields, and I just wonder about runoff.
Yes, we're satisfied that the site won't exacerbate flooding anywhere else. It won't change the situation further downstream.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions, or we can move on to comment if you would like to, members. Anybody have anything to comment on this application? Nobody, everybody's gone bone dry. All right, who is there anybody who would like to propose this application? Somebody has to.
Chair, I'm happy to propose. Carol Jones.
Thank you, Carol. Is there
I'm
somebody
happy. Yeah, I'm happy to second, Chairman. Belinda Rideout.
Belinda Rideout to second. Okay, if we have no further comments, I will move straight to, and you're proposing it as recommended by the officers. If we have no further comments, I'm giving people a chance. No, nobody has anything for the say. I'm going to then move this application to a vote. It has been proposed and seconded, so we are good to go for a vote for this one. When I call you, let me know you're minded to vote. Councillor Andrews.
He's gone, Chairman, I think.
Oh, of course he has. I do beg your pardon. Councillor Cook.
4.
You're 4. Good. Councillor Fry.
4.
Councillor Hall.
4.
Councillor Heatley.
4.
Councillor Jones. Carol Jones. Councillor Stella Jones.
4.
Councillor Emma Parker.
4.
Mary Penfold.
4.
Councillor Val Pothcary.
4.
And Councillor Belinda Rideout. So we are minded
4.
to.
Sorry, 4, Chairman.
Thank you. So we're minded to accept that application. I'll now turn to Anna to give Anna Lee to give us your decision.
Thank you, Chair. I confirm this application will be approved subject to conditions in line with the committee's minded to resolution. Thank you.
That's excellent. Thank you very much indeed. We move on now to our last application of the day, which is 2A Mill Lane, Charminster, application for builder a household extension. And just for clarity, this application is before the committee because the applicant works closely with Dorset Council Planning Services. So I would now ask Emma Ralph if you would give us your report, please, Emma.
Yes, give me one moment to share my screen.
That's all right, whenever. Having trouble?
Sorry, Chair, I won't be a minute. We're just sorting out the presentation.
That's all right. I understand these things are
Thank
difficult.
you.
Yes, we can all compose our thoughts and sit quiet for a moment while you do that. Take your time. That's lovely. It's on our screen now.
Cool. Thank you.
Well, oh yes, there it is. Thank you.
Yep. Sorry. No, that Teams
That's
decided
all
to
right.
shut down. So, sorry, you can't quite see me if I do that. So the proposed development is for a first floor extension over the existing garage, a new dormer window and its associated works. The site's located on the northern edge of Charminster and is accessed from Mill Lane. And the topography slopes downwards towards the northwest. The area consists mainly of detached properties varying between like 2-storey dwellings, chalets and bungalow style buildings with a variety of building materials. The site is located within the conservation area, just above that corner of Mill Lane, and there's a public right-of-way going along its eastern border, or boundary, I should say. It's close to, but is not attached to, the Grade 2 listed building, U House, on the left here. This building in the middle is, or has been, converted to form an annex, which was approved in 2016, to U House. There is a building between the Grade 2 listed building and the applicant's site. So it's just the existing and proposed site view. You can see that there's about a 7 square metre increase at ground floor, with a first floor extension above, sort of set back from the front elevation of this roof form here, to mirror the existing elevation on the other side of the property. These are just separation distances, so it's set back quite far from the highway, and I'll show in a minute walls and boundary treatments between the site and the highway, and the separation distance between the listed building to the left, U House. The proposal is to retain the flat roof above the existing garage, now be converted into utility and storeroom, with a pitched roof above that, like I said, set back from the front elevation, and will include a dormer window to the front and a roof light to the rear of the roof slope. Side elevation, the proposal is to provide a modern addition to the additional corner at ground floor, with the floor to ceiling high folding windows, a new window at first floor for the extension underneath the integrated bird box, and on the southwest elevation, the existing window will be blocked up at first floor. Internally, there are the inside is going to be changed and altered from the playroom to provide a kitchen diner room, convert the existing garage to store and utility room, and at first floor the additional bedroom 4, will be added on, and some minor alterations internally. The loss of the garage won't affect the amount of parking available on the site, because there is a forecourt to the front of this property, so I figured that was acceptable. Here are a couple of photos and where they're located on the plan. So the first one's of the access, showing that forecourt where the car parking spaces are. The second one is the amount of boundary treatment with the wall and then the fencing on top, and you can just about see the flat roof of the garage above. If you can see my cursor, it's there. So you can also see how different the heights are between our property, or the applicant's property, and the neighbouring converted coach house, with their eaves is significantly lower than our site. Image 3 shows the existing area where the proposed ground floor extension is going to be, to use level off the 2 walls to make it sort of square on the footprint. And image 4 and 5 is looking at U House and the converted coach house, where they're a significant distance away, so there wasn't much amenity issue there, considering the building exists already and there's an amenity relationship currently. Key planning matters. No constantly responses were received on this. There was a neighbour comment. This wasn't an objection. This was just concerns over the tree on the shared boundary shown on the plan. It's currently situated there, but the agents confirmed that there will be an application at a later date to remove this tree. And in the neighbour's comment, it was stated that the loss of this tree will compensate for the additional first floor extension on the dwelling, so there wouldn't be a significant alteration in access to light. There was concern over the heritage asset, but considering the converted coach house, which isn't listed, separates the two, there would be no, you wouldn't see these two buildings in the same visual look or design of the street. And then that's just my final slide to illustrate the point of the proposal.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. We have no representations on this and no other comments, so that's pretty straightforward. Members, do anybody have any questions on this? No questions at all. While they're composing their thoughts, Emily, can I just ask you to just revisit a bit the tree? So the tree has not been cut down as part of this proposal.
No. The tree remains as it is currently. I think it's an apple tree.
Yes.
It's not the highest quality of apple trees. As it is in a conservation area, it'll be looked at a different application, but currently that tree exists and is present.
Yes. Okay. Any other comments? I have Councillor Cook, who I will now, if there's no comments, Councillor Cook, would you like to say that you'd like to propose?
Yeah, I'm happy to propose, Chairman.
You'll propose accepting of
Acceptance, yeah, sorry.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second, Chair.
That's Councillor Carol Jones.
Yeah.
That's lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Well, if nobody has any comment to make that, which is entirely reasonable, given that it's very straightforward, I'm very happy to move straight to the vote on this one then. Just don't want to rush you. Nobody's coming forward with any comments. No, that's good. Let's press on and go to the vote then. When I call your name, will you say whether you are for or against? Councillor Cook.
For.
Councillor Fry.
For.
Councillor Hall.
For.
Councillor Heatley.
For.
Councillor Carol Jones.
For.
Councillor Stella Jones.
For.
Councillor Emma Parker.
For.
Councillor Mary Penfold.
For.
Councillor Val Pothecary.
For.
Councillor Belinda Rideout.
For.
That's lovely. So we are minded to support that application. Could I now go to Anna Lee, Service Manager for Planning, to give us your decision, please?
Thank you, Chair. I confirm the application will be approved subject to conditions in line with the committee's minded to resolution. Thank you.
That's excellent. Thank you very much. Committee, I'm delighted to say that there are no urgent items before us today and no exempt business. So that brings the meeting to a close at 3:16 p.m. and thank you all very much for your time, and thank you very much particularly to those officers who were presenting to us the first time. You all did a very splendid job. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you.